We require innovative thinking, not seasoned veterans, Travis declared during the directors' gathering, his gaze fixed directly on me as he spoke. I'm Jake Whitman, 45 years of age, and until moments ago I held the position of Senior Project Director at Whitman & Sons Construction in Omaha, Nebraska. The enterprise my grandfather established with just 2 vehicles and a single wheelbarrow. The business my father transformed into something substantial. The organization I assisted in developing into the 3rd largest commercial construction company across 3 states. I didn't react when Travis made his statement. I simply grinned, reclined in my seat, and gave a slight nod. The chamber fell silent. Uncle Pete glanced down at his palms. Marty from the finance department began shuffling documents. No one would make eye contact with me except Travis, who maintained that ridiculous smile on his face as if he were doing me some sort of favor. "That's a courageous move," I finally remarked. "I wish you success." Then I rose from my chair, fastened my jacket, and exited without another word. They likely anticipated that I would contest it, that I would shout or create a scene or remind everyone that I was the one who secured the Meridian Tower project when we were still too modest in size to manage it, or that I was the one who guided us through the 2008 recession when half our rivals collapsed, or that I was the one who personally cultivated every relationship with our top 5 clients. But that would have been providing Travis exactly what he desired, an opportunity to portray himself as the composed, logical businessman against his emotional older sibling. So instead, I simply walked out. In the parking area, I stood beside my truck for a minute. 22 years with the family enterprise. Started hauling timber when I was 23. Fresh from university with a business degree, nobody respected until I utilized it to triple our earnings. Worked 6 days weekly for most of my 30s, missed vacations, missed my daughter's swimming competitions, missed my first marriage, all for Whitman & Sons. I extracted my phone and examined the email I'd received yesterday from Ben Harding at Crestwell Properties, the one confirming they were proceeding with JW Buildworks instead of Whitman & Sons for their new $3.2 million office complex. My new company. My clients. Travis wasn't aware yet, but he had just terminated the only element keeping Whitman & Sons relevant to our largest customers. He'd been so preoccupied with the banks and the investors and the fancy strategy consultants. He hadn't noticed that every significant project for the past decade succeeded because of the connections I established. And now those connections were coming with me. I entered my truck and drove away from Whitman & Sons for the final time. Something told me Travis would be phoning very soon. I was raised watching my father develop Whitman & Sons. He would return home with soil beneath his fingernails and honor in his eyes, discussing pouring foundations that would endure for generations. Travis and I would sit at the kitchen table listening to him share stories about contracts won and lost. Lessons acquired. He would always conclude the same way. Someday, you boys will manage this together. Travis is 4 years my junior, was always the more intelligent one, at least academically. Private education, prestigious business curriculum at Northwestern, internships with investment firms in Chicago. I remained local, state university, straight into the family operation. My father never expressed it, but I knew he was preparing Travis for the executive office, while I learned the business from the ground level. For years, it functioned. I handled the projects, the clients, the actual construction. Travis managed the finances, the growth strategy, the future. We were an effective partnership. At least I believed we were. The fracture began approximately 3 years ago. Minor things initially. Travis started excluding me from meetings with the board. Just financial matters, Jake. You'd find them tedious. He hired consultants without informing me. brought in new project managers who reported to him, not me. Then he began attending client meetings alone. Meetings I'd always handled. When I inquired about it, he would say, "They specifically requested me." But when I'd follow up with those same clients later, they'd be perplexed. "We asked for you, Jake. Your brother said you were too occupied." Last year, when our father announced his retirement, I already knew what was coming. The board meeting where they named Travis CEO was merely a formality. I sat there nodding, shaking hands, playing my role. What nobody realized was that I'd already recognized the inevitable. For the past 8 months, I'd been constructing something on the side. Nothing unlawful, nothing that violated my contract. Just conversations with our top clients about what would transpire if I ever departed. "You're the only reason we collaborate with Whitman," Ben Harding from Crestwell had told me over beers one evening. "If you go elsewhere, we follow you. As simple as that." I'd heard identical sentiments from the others. Tanner at Riverview Development, Sophia at Blackstone Commercial, James at Westfield Properties, Victor at Union Square Holdings. Collectively, they represented over 60% of our annual revenue. I filed the LLC paperwork for JW Buildworks 6 months ago, secured a credit line, found office space, started discreetly discussing options with our best foremen and project managers. I wasn't stealing, I was preparing. There's a distinction. Travis was so focused on becoming CEO, he never noticed his foundation was deteriorating. The morning following my termination, I went to the small office I'd leased on the west side of town. Nothing elaborate, just a reception area and 2 private offices above an accountant's practice. The sign on the door still displayed the previous tenant's name. I hadn't bothered changing it yet. I'd barely settled in when my phone rang. Travis. I allowed it to go to voicemail, then it rang again and again. Finally, I answered. "Jake, what the hell is happening?" His voice had that high pitch it always acquired when he was panicking. "Ben Harding just called to say Crestwell is withdrawing all their projects from us. Says they've signed with someone else. Someone called JW Buildworks." "Sounds like you've encountered a problem," I said. "Did you orchestrate this? Is this your doing?" "I secured my future just as you did." He was silent for a moment. Then, "These are Whitman and Sons clients. They belong to the company." "No, Travis, they were my clients. I built those relationships. I earned their trust. You thought you were dismissing a project director yesterday, but you were actually terminating the only person those clients actually wanted to work with. This isn't lawful. We'll sue." "Go ahead. My attorney assures me I've done nothing improper. I didn't solicit them while employed. I didn't take proprietary information. I didn't violate any non-compete because I never signed one. I'm just a builder who's now building elsewhere, and my clients are following me." Another extended pause. I could almost hear him thinking, calculating, realizing just how severely he'd misjudged the situation. "Jake, come on, we're brothers. We can resolve this." That's when something shifted inside me. Not anger, something colder, something conclusive. "We were brothers yesterday, too. Didn't prevent you from humiliating me in front of the entire board. That was business, not personal." I almost laughed. "The family name is on the building, Travis. It's all personal." "Look, I made an error. Come back. We'll figure it out together." I looked down at my desk where I'd spread out the preliminary plans for the Crestwell project. "My project now." "No," I said simply. "I'm satisfied where I am." "Jake, you don't comprehend. It's not just Crestwell. Riverview called too, and Blackstone. They're all saying the same thing." Now I did laugh. "I understand perfectly. You're calling because you're in trouble, not because you want me back. There's a difference." "Dad's going to be furious." That stung, but I pushed past it. He wanted us to run the company together. That was your choice to make, not mine. The silence on the other end extended. When Travis spoke again, his voice was different, smaller. What do you want? Money? A board seat? Name it. I don't want anything from you. I've already got what I need. These clients represent over 60% of our annual revenue. The bank will call our loans if we lose them all simultaneously. Like I said, I answered, sounds like you've got a problem. Then I hung up. I sat there for a long time afterward, staring at the phone. I didn't feel the satisfaction I'd expected, just a hollow sort of finality. The last tie severed, the last bridge burned. I was completely independent now, and strangely, it felt right. 3 days after I was dismissed, Uncle Pete appeared at my temporary office. He'd been Dad's right-hand man for 30 years before semi-retiring to a board position. He found me reviewing resumes of project managers I was trying to recruit. "Nice place," he said, looking around at the bare walls and rented furniture. "Very startup." "It's temporary," I said, not rising. "What do you want, Pete?" He sighed and sat down across from me. "The board called an emergency meeting yesterday. Travis told us what you did." "What I did?" Interesting way to frame it. He says, you stole our biggest clients. Says, you've been planning this for months. I put down the resume I'd been reading. I built relationships with those clients for years. I delivered their projects on time and under budget. I earned their loyalty. Travis fired me. They followed me. End of story. Uncle Pete leaned forward. "The board is discussing suing you, Jake. They're serious. Let them. My lawyer says I'm protected. This isn't just about what's legal. It's about what's right. Your father built that company for both of you." That landed harder than I wanted to admit. Dad wanted us to run it together. Travis made a different choice. He made a mistake. He admits that. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. He ambushed me in a board meeting after months of pushing me out. That's a strategy, not a mistake. Uncle Pete rubbed his face. "The company's in trouble, Jake. Real trouble. The bank is getting nervous about our financing without those big projects on the books. I know exactly what position the company's in. I ran the operations for 15 years. Then you know this could sink the whole thing. Everything your father built, everything you built." I felt a twinge of doubt for the first time. "What exactly are you asking me to do? Come back? Bring the clients back? We can restructure the leadership. Co-CEOs, maybe? You and Travis as equals?" For a brief moment, I considered it. Then I remembered Travis's face when he fired me, the satisfaction in his eyes. "No," I said, "that won't work." Uncle Pete stood up, suddenly angry. "Damn it, Jake! This is your family. Travis should have contemplated that before he fired me. Your father is devastated. He's talking about coming out of retirement to fix this mess." Another twist of the knife. Dad was 72, heart problems, doctor's orders to take it easy. Tell Dad to stay home. This isn't his problem to resolve. Uncle Pete headed for the door, then turned back. "The board meeting is tomorrow at noon. They're voting on the lawsuit. And one more thing, Travis has been calling all your subcontractors, telling them anyone who works with you will be blacklisted from Whitman projects permanently." After he left, I sat there feeling the walls close in. My phone started ringing with panicked calls from electricians and plumbers I'd been counting on. They couldn't afford to lose Whitman's business, they said. They were sorry. I'd expected Travis to fight back, but not like this. He was trying to cut me off at the knees. Without reliable subcontractors, I couldn't deliver on the promises I'd made to my clients. By evening, I'd lost commitments from nearly every specialty contractor I needed. My carefully laid plans were unraveling. I was going to have to find new subcontractors, possibly from outside the area, at much higher costs. Costs that would consume most of my projected profits. Travis hadn't just pushed back. He'd found my vulnerability and exploited it perfectly. He wasn't just trying to save Whitman and Sons anymore. He was trying to destroy JW Buildworks before it could even get started. And I had to admit, he was doing a damn good job of it. The next morning, I drove out to see my father. I hadn't been to my parents' house since all this began. Their place sat on 5 acres outside of town, the first real purchase Dad made when the company started taking off in the late 80s. He'd always said a man in construction should have land where he can see the horizon. Mom answered the door. Her face was tight with worry, but she hugged me hard and led me through to the back porch where Dad was sitting, looking out over the property. "Jake," he said, not turning around. His voice sounded older than I remembered. "Dad." I sat down in the chair next to him. For a while, we just sat there in silence. Finally, he spoke. "Your brother tells me you're trying to sink the company." "That's not what I'm doing." "Then what would you call it?" I measured my words carefully. "I'm building something of my own after Travis pushed me out." Dad turned to look at me, his eyes sharp despite everything. "You couldn't work it out? You two were supposed to carry this forward together." "Tell that to Travis. He's the one who fired me in front of the entire board. And now you're taking our biggest clients." "They chose to come with me. I didn't steal anything." Dad sighed heavily. "The situation's worse than you know, son." Something in his tone made me pay closer attention. "What do you mean?" He looked out toward the horizon again. "The company's not as solid as everyone thinks. Last few years, we've been overextended." "Overextended how?" "We've been profitable every quarter." "On paper, sure. But Travis has been borrowing a lot, using future projects as collateral. Those 5 big clients you took, their projects were already factored into loans." I felt like I'd been punched. "How much are we talking about?" "Enough that without those projects, the bank might call everything due." "Why would he do that?" "We've always been conservative with debt." Dad's face clouded. He had ideas, big expansion plans, new markets. He convinced the board it was the future. He paused. I should have paid closer attention before I retired. The pieces were starting to fit together. Travis's strange behavior over the past year, the new consultants, the private meetings. He hadn't just been planning to edge me out. He'd been leveraging the company to the hilt for his grand vision. And now those loans were in danger because I'd taken the clients those loans were based on. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because you need to understand what's really at stake. It's not just your brother's pride or your hurt feelings. If Whitman and Sons goes under, a lot of people get hurt. Employees, suppliers, your mother and me, for that matter." I felt the weight of it settle on my shoulders. "What about the lawsuit? Uncle Pete says the board is voting today." "They are. Travis is pushing hard for it." "And you?" "What do you think they should do?" Dad turned to me, his eyes tired. "I think a lawsuit would just finish off whatever's left of this family." As I drove back to my office, my mind was racing. I'd been so focused on Travis's betrayal, I hadn't seen the bigger picture. He hadn't fired me because he wanted all the glory. He'd fired me because I was the cautious one, the one who would have questioned his risky expansion plans. My leaving with those clients wasn't just embarrassing him. It was exposing the house of cards he'd built. No wonder he was fighting so dirty. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I'd wanted justice, not destruction. I'd wanted to build something of my own, not tear down everything my family had built. But Travis had put us all in an impossible position. By the time I reached my office, I knew I needed to find a third way, one that protected my new company without destroying Whitman and Sons completely. I canceled all my meetings that afternoon and called Ben Harding from Crestwell Properties. "Ben, I need a favor," I said when he picked up. "A big one. After all the times you've pulled our projects back from the brink, name it. I need you to meet with Travis, hear him out. Maybe even consider splitting your projects between my new company and Whitman." There was a pause on the line. "You're asking me to give business back to the company that just fired you, the one that's currently threatening to sue you?" "It's complicated," I said. "Family usually is." "That's asking a lot, Jake." "I know it is, but I'm asking anyway." After Ben reluctantly agreed, I made similar calls to my other 4 major clients. Each conversation was difficult. They were confused, some even angry. They'd chosen to follow me because they trusted me, and now I was sending mixed signals. But eventually, they all agreed to at least meet with Travis. Next, I called my lawyer and asked her to draft a proposal. I needed it by morning. Finally, I called Travis directly. "I'm surprised you picked up," I said when he answered. "I've been trying to reach you for days." His voice was strained. "I know about the loans, Travis. Dad told me everything." A long silence then. "So now you understand why this is so serious?" "I do, and I have a proposal. Meet me tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., my office." "Why would I do that?" "Because I've asked all 5 clients to reconsider working with Whitman. They've agreed to meet with you." Another pause. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just be there." I hung up before he could ask more questions. That night, I barely slept. I kept going over the plan, looking for flaws, for ways it could backfire. By morning, my eyes were burning, but my mind was clear. Travis arrived exactly at 7 o'clock, looking like he hadn't slept either. He was wearing one of his expensive suits, but his eyes were bloodshot, his usual confidence nowhere to be seen. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, not sitting. "Why offer to help after what I did?" He finally sat. "So what's this proposal?" I slid a document across the desk. "J.W. Buildworks and Whitman and Sons enter a strategic partnership. We divide the 5 major clients between us. 3 for Whitman, 2 for me. That should keep the bank happy while giving me enough to build on." He skimmed the document, frowning. "This says I have to step down as CEO." "It does. Dad comes back temporarily while the board finds a new CEO, someone neutral." "And what about the expansion plans?" "Put on hold indefinitely. The company needs to get its financial house in order first." Travis leaned back, studying me. "So you get your revenge after all." "This isn't about revenge. It's about saving what's worth saving and letting go of the rest." "And if I refuse?" "Then I keep all 5 clients. You default on your loans, and Whitman and Sons likely doesn't survive. Your choice." He stared at the document for a long time. I could almost see him calculating, weighing options, looking for a way out. The Travis I knew would never accept these terms. But the Travis sitting across from me now wasn't the same man who'd fired me with a smirk. This one looked beaten, cornered. "The board won't like this," he said finally. "The board will like bankruptcy even less." He picked up a pen, hesitated, then signed the document. As he stood to leave, he looked at me directly for the first time. "I really thought I was doing the right thing, for the company." I didn't answer. Some things don't deserve a response. After he left, I called Dad to tell him what had happened. Then I called the clients to let them know the new arrangement. By noon, it was done. Not the outcome I'd planned for, not a clean victory, but something sustainable, something that could work. Sometimes that's the best you can hope for. 6 months later, I stood on the construction site of the Crestwell office complex. The steel framework was rising against the sky. Concrete floors already poured for the first 3 levels. My project, my company. Across town, Whitman and Sons was still standing. Dad had come back temporarily, just long enough to stabilize things. The new CEO, a no-nonsense woman with 30 years in construction management, was slowly rebuilding the company's reputation and financial footing. Travis had left Nebraska altogether, took a job with a development firm in Colorado. We hadn't spoken since the day he signed my proposal. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to see Ben Harding approaching, hard hat in hand. "Looking good, Jake," he said, surveying the progress. "On schedule, 2 weeks ahead, actually." He nodded approvingly. "Not surprised. That's why we followed you." He hesitated. "You know, your brother called me last week." That caught me off guard. "Travis? What did he want?" "To apologize, actually. Said he'd made a mistake letting you go. Said you were the one who really understood what made the company work." I didn't know what to say to that. He also mentioned he's starting something new out in Denver. Asked if I had any contacts out that way. "And do you?" Ben shrugged. "A few. I gave him some names." He looked at me carefully. "That okay with you?" I thought about it. "Yeah, it's okay." We walked the site together, discussing timelines and material deliveries, normal construction talk. But my mind kept drifting back to Travis, to his apology, to the fact that he was trying to build something new just like I was. Maybe that was the Whitman way after all. Not tearing each other down, but building, creating something solid that would last. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was a start. 1 year to the day after I was fired, I parked outside the Whitman and Sons headquarters. I hadn't been back since I walked out of that board meeting. The building looked the same, but the company wasn't. They downsized significantly, focused on smaller, more manageable projects. No more grand expansion plans. Dad was fully retired again. The new CEO, Diane, was making steady progress rebuilding what Travis had almost destroyed. I'd kept my end of the bargain. JW Buildworks stayed focused on our 2 major clients, not poaching any more business from Whitman. We'd grown, but carefully, sustainably, currently 38 employees and a solid reputation for quality work. I wasn't there for a meeting or a contract negotiation. I was there because Dad had asked me to come, said there was something he wanted me to see. Inside, a few familiar faces nodded at me. Some looked surprised to see me there. I took the elevator to the executive floor. Dad was waiting in the conference room, the same one where Travis had fired me. But the room had changed. The pretentious artwork was gone, replaced by large photographs of Whitman and Sons projects over the years. And there, on the wall behind the head of the table, were 3 framed photographs. Grandfather with his first 2 trucks, Dad breaking ground on their first major commercial project in 1988, and me, 10 years ago, shaking hands with the mayor after completing the Meridian Tower ahead of schedule. "Diane's idea," Dad said, watching me take it in. "She said we needed to remember our foundations." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "You built a good company, son," Dad said quietly. "Your own thing. I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Dad." We didn't talk about Travis. We didn't need to. Some things break and can't be fixed, but that doesn't mean you can't build something new from the pieces that remain. I walked out of Whitman and Sons for the second time, but this time I walked out with peace,